The news is depressing. Prices are rising. The economy is declining. And the future you work so hard to build, it does not feel as certain as it once did. You are holding it together on the outside, but inside, your mind will not stop. What if things get worse? What if I am not prepared? What if I lose everything I worked for? But here is what nobody talks about. Uncertainty does not just affect your circumstances, it impacts your sleep, your energy, your peace, your ability to hear God clearly. And for women over 40, this is exactly where we get caught off guard. Because the waiting, the wandering, the washing, that alone can drain you before anything even happens. So today, I'm giving you what I call the Unshaken Response Framework because fear should never be your decision maker. So the first thing uncertainty does is expose our foundation. And I know that might sound uncomfortable, but stay with me. Often, uncertainty is rarely the real problem. It exposes what we were already trusting in. And the moment that thing feels threatened, everything rises to the surface. The fear, the anxiety, the panic, the exhaustion. Because when life feels predictable, it's easy to believe we are trusting God. When the bills are paid, the children are okay, the marriage feels stable, the job feels secure, the body feels strong, and the future looks somewhat planned out. We can say, God, I trust you. And we may truly believe it. But then something shifts. The economy changes. A loved one died. Your work is cutting jobs. The children starts rebelling. The prices keep rising and your body does not respond the way it used to. The future then suddenly feels unclear. And all of a sudden, we begin to see what our trust was really attached to. And so the question you may need to ask is, was I trusting God? Or was I trusting that I had everything under control? Was I trusting God? Or was I trusting the money in the account? The job I thought was secure? The business plan I believed would work? The help I assumed I would always have? Or the version of my life I had already written in my head? I had to ask myself the same questions. I thought I trusted God until I left my job to start a business. And what I did not realize was how much faith that decision would actually require. Because you invest, you work, you pray, you believe, and naturally you expect to get good results, right? But the reality is the harvest may not come when you expected it. It may not come how you imagine it. It may not look like what you thought obedience would produce. And for me, that was uncomfortable. Not because I did not believe in God, but because I realized how much my trust had been quietly tied to feeling like I still had control. And I share that because I want you to know this is something I also had to work through. Uncertainty can feel so threatening because it touches the very things we have built our sense of security on. It touches the place where we say, Lord, I trust you. But underneath that, we are also thinking, as long as this works out the way I want it to. And that is where God begins to reveal the foundation. Now, Jesus talks about this in Matthew chapter 7, when he gives the picture of two houses. One was built on the rock, and one was built on sand. And what is interesting is that both houses experienced the storm. The storm did not only come to the foolish man, the storm came to both. That means being a believer does not exempt us from uncertainty, pressure, loss, transition, disappointment, or hard seasons. The difference was not whether the storm came, the difference was the foundation. And this is where many women over 40 get caught off guard because uncertainty reveals what we truly believe and where our trust lies. But here is the good news. When uncertainty exposes your foundation, it is not because God is trying to shame you. It is because He loves you enough to show you what cannot sustain you. So every season has been revealing fear. exhaustion, control, worry, or panic in you, do not see it as failure. See it as an invitation. God may be showing you, my daughter, I never meant for you to put your trust in the economy, predictable income, or circumstances you can manage. You were to put your trust in me. So the next part of the Unshaken Response Framework is this: recognize the cycle. Now, uncertainty is not new. And I know when you are in it, it feels new. It feels like this time is different. This time the world is really falling apart. This time I genuinely do not know how this is going to end. And I have felt that. So you are not the only one who struggle with those thoughts. But I also want to invite you to do something. Zoom out. Because if you look back over history and even over your life, you will see a pattern. Think about 9/11. I remember life shifting almost overnight. Travel changed, security changed, families were grieving, people were afraid to fly, afraid to go to work, afraid of what was coming next. And everyone was answering the same question: are we safe? What happens next? Then came 2028. People lost house, lost jobs, retirement accounts that took decades to build seemed to lose their value overnight. Families who believed they had done everything right suddenly realized how fragile the system they trusted could be. Then the pandemic. And I think we all remember that feeling. Almost overnight, the entire world was pushed into uncertainty. And none of us knew what was coming next. Schools closed, businesses closed, and we were all carrying the same weight, worried about our health, our income, our future, our parents, our future. And now here we are hearing about inflation, food prices, job security, wars, and wondering what kind of future our children are going to inherit. And I'm not sharing this to add to your anxiety. I'm sharing it because I want you to see something clearly. Uncertainty moves in cycles. The headlines change, the crisis changes, the names change, the industries change, the technology changes. But uncertainty itself, it is not new. Ecclesiastes tells us there is nothing new under the sun. And what else is not new? The human response. People panic, people withdraw, people assume the worst, people spread fear, people make major life decisions from a place of anxiety instead of wisdom. And ladies, we cannot afford to do that. This is why recognizing the cycle matters. Because if you do not recognize it, every uncertain season will feel like the end. Every shift in the economy will feel like the whole future is collapsing. Every delay will feel like denial. Every closed door will feel like God has forgotten you. But when you recognize the cycle, something changes. You begin to say, wait, this is not the first time. This is not the first time the world has felt unstable. This is not the first time believers have had to choose trust over fear. And here is the part I love. We have proof. We have seen seasons that felt impossible, seasons where you did not know how you were going to make it, seasons where you were holding things together on the outside while everything felt uncertain on the inside. And yet, here you are, still standing, still breathing, still believing. So do not let the enemy use the next uncertain season to make you forget every season God already carried you through. Because this is what the cycle also reveals. This may be uncertain to you, but it has never been uncertain to God. He was not surprised by 9/11. He was not surprised by 2028. He was not surprised by the pandemic. And he is not surprised by what is happening in your marriage, your finances, your health, your family, or your future right now. Not one moment of it caught him off guard. Now, this does not mean we become passive. It does not mean we put our heads in the sand and refuse to make wise decisions. It simply means we start treating every uncertainty as if it is bigger than the God we serve. Panic does not have to be your response. Fear does not have to be your response. Losing sleep every time something shifts does not have to be your response. You are called to recognize the cycle, but not be ruled by it. Because Jesus never promised us a trouble free life, He promised us something much better. He looked at His disciples and said, in this world you will have trouble, but take heart, I have overcome the world. He did not say trouble might come, he said it will come. But he also said, I already overcome it. And because we belong to him, we do not face uncertainty as people who are defeated, abandoned, or without hope. So the last part of the Unshaken Response Framework is this. Remember your God and remember God's economy. Because when uncertainty rises, one of the first things fear tries to do is make you forget who you serve. Fear wants you to stare at the economy. Fear wants you to stare at the prices. Fear wants you to stare at the bad report, the closed door, the delay, the thing that is missing, the thing you cannot control. And honestly, in those moments, fear has a way of filling every corner of your mind if you let it. But faith invites you to lift your eyes and remember your God. Because as believers, we do not deny reality. We are not pretending that things are not hard. We are not putting our heads in the sand. But we also refuse to allow reality to become bigger than God in our minds. And this is where we have to understand what I call God's economy. Now, when I say that, I want to be clear about what I am not saying. I am not saying money does not matter. I am not saying to be irresponsible. I am not saying that believers will never face lack, loss, difficulty, or pressure. That would not be biblical, and honestly, that would not be honest. What I mean is simply this. God is not limited by the systems that limit man. The world may have shortages, but God does not lack resources. The world may be unstable, but God is not unstable. The world may have closed doors, but God knows how to open doors no man can shut. The world may be full of uncertainties, but God is never uncertain. Now, Psalm 24 says, the earth is the Lord's and the fullness thereof. Everything ultimately belongs to him. The cattle on the thousand hills, the silver and the gold, the earth and everything in it. So when the world starts talking like everything is running out, the woman of God has to anchor herself in this truth. My source is not running out. That does not mean I will always have everything I want, but it does mean I am not abandoned. I am not forgotten. I am not limited to only what I can see right now. This is why the names of God matter so much in seasons like this, because the name of God reveals the nature of God. Now think about Gideon. He was afraid. He was hiding. His nation was under oppression. And in the middle of all of that, God showed up and revealed himself as Jehovah Shalom. The Lord is peace. What I love about this is Gideon's circumstances were not peaceful yet. Nothing around him had changed, but God introduced himself as peace, even before Gideon saw peace in his situation. And I think this is a reminder for someone watching this right now. You may be waiting for everything around you to calm down before you allow yourself to feel peace. But God is saying, I am your peace before the situation changes. Then there is Jehovah Jireh, the Lord will provide. Now, Abraham called him that in Genesis 22, when God provided a ram in the thicket. And what strikes me every time I read that story is that the provision was already there. Abraham just could not see it yet. And this is such an encouragement for the woman who is trying to figure out everything out in advance. And I know that woman, because sometimes that woman is me. You may not see the ram yet. You may not see the answer yet. You may not see where the provision is coming from, but Jehovah Jireh means God sees ahead. He provides according to his wisdom, his timing, and his purpose, not ours. And then there is Jehovah Rohi. The Lord is my shepherd. Now, Psalm 23 does not say, the Lord is my shepherd, so I will understand every season. It says, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. Now, a sheep does not need to know the whole route. The sheep needs to know the shepherd. And I want to speak to the women who are used to carrying everything, planning everything, managing everything, thinking 5 steps ahead for everybody else in their lives. This one is for you. Uncertainty is not always an invitation to plan harder. Sometimes it is an invitation to trust God more. I do not have to know the entire path if I am being led by the shepherd. Now notice that Psalm 23 does not say we will never walk through valleys. It says we do not walk through them alone. And this is what God's economy really looks like. So when uncertainty rises, I want you to pause and ask yourself honestly, have I forgotten who I serve? I serve Jehovah Shalom, the Lord my peace. I serve Jehovah Jireh, the Lord my provider. I serve Jehovah Rohi, the Lord my shepherd. I serve the God who fed Israel in the wilderness, who sustained Elijah by the brook, who multiplied the widows all, who fed thousands with 5 loaves and 2 fishes, who said, seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things shall be added unto you. So yes, be wise. Pay attention to what is happening around you. Budget, plan, prepare, build, learn, and adjust. Steward well what God has placed in your hands. But do not let uncertainty make you forget your God. Your trust is not rooted in the economy, the government, the job market, or your ability to predict what comes next. Your trust is rooted in the character of God. And the God you serve is not anxious, He is not surprised, He is not limited, and He is not confused. So let me bring this home. The Unshaken Response Framework is not a formula for making uncertainty disappear. It is a way of making sure that when uncertainty shows up, and it will, it does not become your decision maker. So check your foundation, because uncertainty has a way of revealing what we were really trusting all along. And if the season has been exposing areas you have not fully surrendered, see it as an invitation. God is not exposing it to destroy you. He is exposing it so He can rebuild you on what is solid. Recognize the cycle. You have lived through things that felt impossible, and you are still here, still standing, still believing. Do not let the enemy use the next uncertain season to make you forget every season God already carried you through. And remember your God, not just what He can do, but who He is. He is Jehovah Shalom, your peace, before your circumstances change. He is Jehovah Jireh, who sees the provision before you do. He is Jehovah Rohi, the shepherd who does not ask you to know the whole path, just to follow Him. So if this video helped you, I want you to share with a woman in your life who needs it right now. And if you are personally walking through a season of uncertainty, jot the word unshaken in the comments. I want to pray for you.